Welcome back, everybody, to Keys and Gears. We're talking about inspections today, Bess, and what to expect on inspection day, the big day. Everybody's shaking their boots. What's this house going to be like on the inspection? So let's talk about that. By the way, I'm Mark Liesner. I'm a local mortgage broker. This is Bess Dickson, local mortgage professional. Real estate professional. You didn't know you were a mortgage professional as well. But
side hustle.
Between us, we have 40 years of experience. So I can walk a mile in her shoes and she can walk a mile in my shoes too. So we both have enough experience for that. So anyway, so let's talk about inspection day, Bess. What should I be expecting on inspection day?
Well, 24 hours before inspection day, your inspector has reached out to you and emailed you, as well as made a call of expectations, primarily being the cost of the inspection,
right.
Which runs between $450 to as much as $1,100, $1,200. Why that spread? Because every house is different. And if you have a pool, that's a separate inspection. If you have a sauna, that's a separate inspection. If you've got multiple outbuildings on the property, those are going to be additional fees, additional inspections. If your home is not a slab, if it's on pier and beam, that's going to be an extra fee. What? I mean, inspectors want to be paid extra to be climbing under a house.
Well, it's their time, right? So number one is they're going to send you, how much is it going to cost you? Number two is I'm going to be there at a certain time. And they're probably going to tell you not to show up during the inspection, right?
They're going to be there. You're not to be there.
Right. It's really because you want them to do their work, and they don't need being interrupted by you asking questions or saying, "Hey, I saw this over here or over there," right?
You want to honor their process. We've all have our own checklist that if you take a call or answer a text message, the likelihood of you missing something kind of increases quite a bit when you agree. So we don't want to do that with our inspector, because you do want to leverage those dollars that you've just invested in his time and expertise by enabling him, honoring him to follow that checklist.
So when should you be there for the inspector? I mean, when should you arrive?
Right.
Ta-da, I'm here.
Right. Generally the last 30, 45 minutes. Okay. You do want to keep your phone near you. Because inspectors will tell you up front, there's a leeway there. Sometimes, because things just fall into place, they are done a bit earlier.
Right.
Sometimes they need a bit of extra time because they've come across a little speed bump and they want to deep dive into the speed bump, whatever that might be, before they come, because they do value your time as well.
Makes sense.
And while you're there in person, and yes, you do want to make a point of being there in person, you get to actually see what's going on. So yes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but touching and feeling and smelling is so much more valuable. Yeah. So if there's something that is brought up, a deficiency of concern, you and the inspector can actually go together and inspect it in person, touch it, feel it, smell it, whatever, and discover, the picture looked kind of scary, but in real life, it's like this little tiny thing about this big, and it's really not that big of a deal. Makes a big difference on your perspective.
So you don't want to skip the inspection, which I've had buyers do, which I advise them against it. Yeah. And usually these were out-of-town buyers, and they just weren't in town. So that's kind of not what I would suggest.
We do have workarounds for that.
We do.
Different episode, put a pin on that,
I guess. We do. There's ways around it, but you really want to be present at the end to kind of go over the things and see things firsthand with the inspector there. So, that, and you also want the inspector to really go over the report with you, hopefully, and spend the time with you and answer your questions that you might have about each of the items.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And your realtor isn't always going to be there. But hopefully they're there for the last 30 minutes. I know Bess is, but I know other realtors who don't go to those inspections. Me as a real estate agent, I was always there, right? And I typically ended up being there from start to finish the entire time. Just took my laptop and worked from that house during the inspection, because I wanted to be there in case something happened. But not everybody has the time to do that, so don't expect that. But your realtor is a good sounding board for a lot of these things, right? Because the inspector lives in their little bubble, and the realtor has their own bubble they live in. And so when the two come together, it kind of, you can bring things to the table that the inspector may not have noticed or seen in previous houses, right?
Well, and POV is
Yeah.
a big thing right now on social media,
Yeah.
right? And the important POV to keep in mind for inspectors is that they are inspecting the house again as a general physician, as your
Yeah.
general physician does, but they are inspecting it based on the current international building code.
Correct.
That is their POV. Why do I mention that? Because the international building code changes every 3 years. It's updated every 3 years. So that means that a house built in 2022,
It's
if
already
it's
out of
inspected
code.
in 2025, for example, is out of code.
Yeah. And it's, I hear that all the time, and I'm like, guys, a house is out of code the minute it's built. I mean, really, you're not going to find it. So if you're inspecting a 50-year-old house, don't expect it to be up to code. The inspector will have to tell you it's out of code, but that's because they have to tell you. It doesn't mean it needs to get fixed, which is something
And
we've
referencing
brought
back
up
to a
before.
previous episode,
Yeah.
that's where that additional life experience is so critical for your inspector, because they can bring to the table, hey, by law, I have to say this and this. And that's the truth. It doesn't have a GFCI in the
every
kitchen.
location.
A GFCI. Maybe that's another episode too. Well, y'all, I'm just piling on your homework, aren't I? You're gonna want to be with us all the time.
And GFCI is an outlet that trips itself when there's water splashing around.
But that's a common thing. But
that's
all that to say, he's going to tell you that. But he's like, hey, this house, for example, is 100 years old, and it's still doing great,
Just
even
fine.
without its magical GFCI switch. There
Correct.
you go, right?
So
in closing on all of this and to tie it all together, what is next steps after you've met in person at the house with the inspector? You should expect within 24 hours a robust report. Generally, nowadays, it also includes a link to a living document, which is it's going to have a PDF. It's going to have all the verbiage describing his findings, as well as loads of pictures and ideally loads of video of actual water actually flowing, for example, your sprinklers actually running, those sorts of things. And then you and your agent, or just you, can go through the report. I suggest with my tribe that they start with the summary at the very end and kind of see what those hot buttons are. Grab a piece of paper, write it down. Those things that you're like, little hits. You're like curiosities that come up, and then those that are on that list of yours, then go back through and deep dive and read the entire report. Sure, you are welcome to read 30 through 70 pages or whatever your report might be. It can be a bit overwhelming. So that's why I suggest next step would be to start with a summary and go from there and see where you need a deep dive. And then ideally you meet with your agent and talk about the next steps, which would be do various specific specialist trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roof, etc. Do they need to be called in to give you a deep dive, full-time professional in that system opinion of what's going on with the house?
And if I may point out a couple of things. No inspection is perfect. So inspectors will miss things. No inspection is set in stone, meaning that after you purchase a home, a week later, the water heater explodes on you. And you say to yourself, the inspector should have found that. That's not how this works, okay? Even if you brought out a master plumber and the next week the plumbing breaks, that's not on the master plumber. So don't expect to have a perfect inspection report that's going to tell you everything that's possibly wrong with the house. It's not going to be there. It's a best guess. Okay. These are visual inspections. They're not, you can't take the house apart, just like you can't tell how much body fat I have until you dissect me. So it's the same kind of thing. You're just not going to know if there's something behind the wall that's broken or not. So, I'm just saying. Second of all you can't expect, even from the money you spend, to have a guarantee to have insurance on this house is going to be great. You also can't expect the seller to agree with you that all these are repairs.
Uh-huh.
You can't expect the seller to do everything that's on that report. It's very unusual for a seller.
Which is a strategy we were going to talk about in another episode.
Right. In the previous episode, we talked about the new build. That's different because you have a builder there that has all the tradesmen there. It's no big deal for them to fix things. For a seller, it's a big deal, right? And they're not even going to agree with everything the inspector finds. They can bring out their own professionals and say whatever the inspector says is wrong. I've seen that happen too. So your expectations needs to be, rational, and you need a professional on your side that can coach you through that, because a lot of you are going to see this inspection report, see 70 pages of repair, and expect the seller to do all this. And it's just not going to happen.
So
it's an unrealistic expectation.
So let's talk about how we get to that, walk through that process with a seller. And that would be, go back to what we were talking about, which is, after you've got your list of hot points and you have called specialists to come in and look at it. All right. Now you look at what you've got in front of you. You've got your report from the roofer that says, actually, it's just a little bit of wind damage that's going to take about 4 or 5 roofing squares to finish, to repair, It says it's going to be about $700. And then you've got the HVAC system that's fine. It's just the sellers haven't changed the air filter in so many months, and it's operating as intended. It could just use an annual maintenance and update and those sorts of things. So you look at all the facts that you have, all right, and then you work with your agent to create, I call it an ask list, a request list. And the way I phrase it with my agent, my professional on the other side, which would be the listing agent, and that is, these are the concerns that my buyers have about the house. We limited it to systems and safety, which is tip 1 on how to be successful in moving forward on this house that you're excited about, which is to focus on those systems and safety. What does that mean, Bess? I mean, the guts of the house are what you want to make right. Just like when you bought your used car, and we've all bought used cars, you wanted to make sure that the engine was connected to the drive axle, and the drive axle was connected
and the brakes were working.
Yes.
But the brake
But all the gears were functioning
the
as
gears were
intended.
running very well. Bravo. Nice tie in there. Nice tie in.
That is what you want to do. So same thing. So that's when we say systems, we're talking about the gears of the house.
Right.
Are they all working? We do not worry about the broken faceplate in the laundry room. We do not worry about so much about the burned out light bulb in the oven. I mean, those are annoyances. Yes, we'd like to fix them, but those are like little petty things. They're like the minor little door ding in that door, with the car.
You really have to distinguish between something that is near the end of its life. So that's number 1 you want to look at, because those are future repairs that you're going to have to pay for as the new owner. You have to look at what are truly repairs, things that are truly not working right now, that are not operating the way they should. That could be a roof leak. That could be, shingles that are missing, all kinds of things. And thirdly, there's deferred maintenance, things that are in disrepair, so to speak, but they're not critical, like the broken faceplate, right? It should have been maintained better, the house, but it wasn't, because nobody's perfect. No home seller out there maintains a perfect house. So understand the difference between those 3 and really hone in on the things that are critical, that are really important to you as well as to the house, right?
Exactly.
Because some people get hung up on small things being critical when they miss the big picture and go, you really need to be looking at this, not at this. And that's why you need a professional like Bess to say to you, hey, I know you're focused on this, but you really need to be looking over here.
Fair enough.
And focused on
Fair enough. And one thing we haven't talked about is, what's the timing on all this? What is the timing? Because it is going to take a bit of time to get all those specialists to come into the house. In Texas, all this is going on during what we call the option period, wherein you, the buyer, have paid a fee for the privilege and opportunity to opt out of moving forward on the purchase because of something that you have found that you just can't live with. And all you lose is your option fee. How much is that fee? It's a negotiated item on the front end when you're creating your contract, and that's a different episode that we've talked about before, and we will again, I'm sure.
Yes.
But it can run anywhere from 3 days all the way up to 2 weeks, whatever it is. That's the period, excuse me. The fee, believe it or not, Bess has actually written an option period fee of $1.
Wouldn't recommend
That's another
No.
cocktail conversation on that. By the way, they're still in the house, so it did work out. But the sky is the limit. The option fee in Texas is the only money that a seller is certain to be able to keep if you, the buyer, decide to walk away. So you want something that's compelling,
Right.
an amount that's compelling, but also one that you can walk away from, right? Because you're already going to think about it as a buyer. It's starting to add up, right? You've heard of closing costs. Well, there's some closing costs that don't actually happen on closing day, keys day. And this is part of it. So the option fee, the inspection we just talked about is going to be about anywhere from $400 to $1,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some specialists, some of the trades do charge for their
Yes.
time, understandably
Expect that.
so, because the good ones are worth the time. They're
Yeah.
worth the $150.
They charge
They're
for their
worth the
time.
$250 to come out and deep dive on that plumbing or deep dive on the HVAC system. So anyway, so you've got that investment into this home that you're not even sure you're going to move forward
It's
in
part
on
of the
that.
process.
So, all right, so we've got our hot button list. We've spent a little money investigating, and by the way, that money is still, in my humble opinion, worthwhile because this money is designed to protect the hundreds and thousands of dollars that you're going to be spending if you move forward, right? So we present our concerns, our asks to the list agent. And systems and safety, generally, how are those concerns resolved? It really depends on the breadth and the scope of those concerns. But the three primary ways that we find solutions in the buying process and buyers are comfortable and certain in their purchase moving forward is sellers look at all these estimates that we've collected and they agree to drop the price of the house by that amount. They agree that, we'll cover your closing costs equal to that amount. Or we'll take all those estimates and we'll take care of it before closing. We'll just go ahead and pay for it ourselves. And those are three possibilities. So again, circling back around to an inspection is a time to get informed about the home and its quirky personality, if you will, its history. We do work. It's a way to get more certainty about your purchase. As Mark was saying, it's not an absolute.
No.
Inspectors should never be confused with fortune tellers.
Yes.
That would be a different profession.
Yeah.
And sadly, I occasionally come across buyers that are confused.
Yes. They expect that. That's why I brought it up.
Yes.
In my own experience.
Right.
And by the way, there's a fourth outcome that can happen is the seller says no to everything.
To everything. And
here's why. Because a lot of times smart sellers and smart listing agents, it's usually the listing agent that did this, is they prepared the seller and said to them, I see a lot of things wrong with this house. And therefore, we can't ask top dollar for this house. And so you may have negotiated a really good deal already up front in the sales price, and the seller is not willing to do more than that, right? So I had a customer, and as a mortgage lender, I typically don't get involved in these situations. But this was a situation where we had a buyer agent that was hands off. And let's just put it that way. They were hard to reach. They were hard to get on the phone. They didn't show up for the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And so the buyer knew that I had some experience in the real estate world and reached out to me and said, I'm at a loss here. I'm looking at this inspection report, and the inspector kind of told me the highlights, but the seller has now come back and said to us, I don't want to do any of this. Mm-hmm. This is all BS. This is all not Those are not repairs. So can you take a look at this inspection report and tell me what you think? My agents just threw up their hands and said, oh, well, the seller doesn't want to do it. What are we going to do? So I took a look at it. I came back to them and I said, look, here's what I see. I'm not an inspector. I'm not a real estate agent anymore, but you asked me for my opinion. Probably shouldn't even give it to you, but here it goes. And so I kind of explained to them, I looked at the value of the house, the contracted price. I ran it through my valuation models. And I said, you're probably looking at you're paying $10,000 less for this house than you should. Did your agent tell you that?
You've already negotiated your
Right. And so their agent didn't tell them that. They said, who came up with this offer, with this negotiating price that you went back and forth with the seller on? And they said, well, we kind of did our own research and that's the numbers we came up with. And I said, well, you did a great job because in my estimation, you getting a $10,000 reduction of what you should be paying. So maybe the seller is thinking I already gave you a discount. Considering where they listed, where you contracted, there's a big discrepancy there. And so in my estimation, that's probably what's going on here. So ask your agent to reach out to listing agents to say, hey, why is the seller saying no? And sure enough, they came back with that and said, the seller just felt like this was nickel and diming them, and when they had already given them so much on the front end. And so it's a scenario where the agent wasn't communicating with the buyer, correct? Their agent wasn't communicating, and the listing agent also wasn't communicating, which added, because they just said no without explanation, right? And sure enough, when the appraisal came in, it came in $20,000 above what they contracted for. So there was the answer, right?
Yeah.
And so, a seller is not always going to say yes, even though those are true repairs. And I agreed with them. All those things were true repairs. They weren't BS like the seller said. They weren't nickel and diming. These were true concerns about this house. And so therefore, they were valid to ask for them. But the seller had already, said, I gave you all this money already, but again, communication is key in this process, and you got to
absolutely,
you have a lot of people involved in this, and so communication between all those parties sometimes is a little
and people
difficult.
Is key.
Yeah,
you just hit it. People's because I had sellers that was their reaction one time when a buyer came in. The buyer had come in very aggressively to begin with. We managed to ease it back to where it was something that everybody could live with. And the inspection came, and this buyer was just like,
and
the faceplates are broken. I mean, that's kind of what they were asking.
And I'm sure as a listing agent, you pointed out to them that, hey, we negotiated this price. We don't expect to see a broken faceplate on the repair list.
You said it nicer than I did. I just said, are you kidding me?
Yes.
Because, because I said, I shared with the agent, I said, I'm sure you would agree. This is where we're at. Right. This is where the sellers decided they could live with. And now you're asking for,
on top of that,
for more. Right. And we priced, just as you had indicated, we priced knowing this and this need to be taken care of, but because they need to leave quickly, and they have all these other extenuating circumstances, they did not want to take care of it. So we have already kind of put that into the price, and now we're here.
Right.
So enough is, do you want the house or not?
And that's when
do you want the house or not?
That's when transactions fall apart, is because the agents aren't communicating with each other. As a listing agent, my first question was always, when I got those kind of reports back or repair lists, is, does your buyer still want to buy this house? My first question to them. And if the answer was yes, I said, okay, let's talk about this more in depth. If the answer was no, then I said, why are we still talking?
So ultimately, the way we resolved it is, I just asked her, I said, tell you what, why don't you go back through the neighborhood one more time and pretend like your buyer's terminated this contract.
Right.
And you've come up with an even better house and even a better deal. And then let's talk in the morning. And she came back and she said they've decided to stay.
Yeah.
That they're okay.
That's a great way to put it.
because
Yep. Yep. And on the seller side, the same thing. Let's imagine this buyer walks away. We get to the next buyer. The next buyer comes up with the same exact list. Then what?
right.
So
Which is an
it cuts
episode I'd
both
love
ways.
to have too,
It
to
cuts
talk
both
about.
ways.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But to wrap up, don't be there the entire inspection time. Get a quote from the inspector up front so you know how much it's going to cost you. Don't just rely on it should be this amount or that amount. Every inspector is different. Be there during the end of the inspection so you can go over the highlight of the inspection. Maybe the low light, well, depends. Don't be frightened by the 30, 70-page inspection report. There's a lot of things on there that they have to put on there that aren't really pertinent. They're really not important. And then spend time to deep dive and maybe hire extra help, extra inspectors to do each one of those systems and safety that Bess was talking about that are critical to you and critical to the house.
And
right?
real quick, as we're wrapping up,
Yep.
I just realized I didn't close a loop, which is we talked about option period.
Yes.
Why do we want to get all these specialists done during option period? Because yes, if you do have a seller that says it's a take it or leave it,
Right.
I'm not doing anything, right? You want to have the power, you want to have the ability to just say enough, I'm done,
right.
and walk away,
Right.
and have only invested that option fee
And the
inspection fees. So I apologize for that.
No,
I
no,
just
that's-
realized I was like,
that's-
I didn't. So that is why. And you exercise that right to opt out during the option period.
And that's why we have this option period is to make sure that you want to buy this house. That's really what that period is for. If you want to bring your parents at that point, if that's what
A lot of people
that's the
do.
time to bring him. Don't. By the way, don't bring him along to every house showing. But that's another podcast. That's just a headache, please. No, we love them, but at the right time. Anyway, so wrapping up, that's kind of the nutshell what to expect during inspection day. There's a lot more to this. Again, have a professional on your side that can guide you through that.
In the meantime, did any of this spark some more questions or like, hey, what about this?
Right.
Drop us an email line at keysandgears@gmail.com. And Mark and I look forward to chatting with you again.
Like and subscribe to our podcast. Forward this to other people that are in the home buying process or thinking about it. We'd love to help them find their keys and gears.
We're here to serve.